Engine components which move against each other are subject to friction, and friction causes a loss of engine power and wear of the components. Friction can be reduced by inserting a lubricant between the moving surfaces. In the case of aviation engines, the lubricant is oil. Pressure lubrication requires that the oil is forced between the moving parts. Alternatively, the components can be splash lubricated. The primary task of the oil is to reduce friction and wear, but it has a number of secondary functions which are extremely important. Perhaps the most important of these secondary tasks is that of cooling. The flow of oil through the engine picks up heat, which is then dissipated in an oil cooler. As the oil flows through the engine, it carries away the byproducts of combustion, and thus cleans the engine. A filter will clean the oil and allow it to return back to the system. Most of the components of the engine are ferrous in nature and will, if left alone, corrode. The oil prevents this corrosion. The oil can act as a hydraulic medium, for instance, when used as the hydraulic fluid in a variable pitch propeller mechanism. The oil system can also act as an indicating medium, giving information to the pilot of engine condition and power output. There are two lubrication systems in common use. They are the wet sump system and the dry sump system. Most light non-aerobatic aircraft use the wet sump system, where the oil is stored in the bottom of the engine, usually called the sump. This simplifies construction, but leads to a number of disadvantages. In the wet sump engine, the oil is circulated by the pressure pump. The oil then passes through a high-pressure filter into internal drillings in the crankcase. These are called the oil gallery. Ducts in the oil gallery transfer the pressure oil to provide lubrication for the various drives in the accessory casing, and also the main crankshaft bearings. Annular grooves are cut in the crankshaft bearings, and these are aligned with holes drilled in the crankshaft. These fill with pressure oil, which is forced through the transverse drillings in the crankshaft into the big end bearings. Oil droplets, being squeezed out of the bearings, will collide with the crankshaft as it rotates, with the result that the inside of the crankcase is filled with a fine oil mist. This will provide splash lubrication for the cylinder walls, the pistons, the small end bearings, gear teeth, and valve mechanisms, etc. Lubrication for the valve gear rocker arms is fed through external oil pipelines. The first disadvantage of the wet sump lubrication system is that there are lubrication difficulties during manoeuvres. Oil is thrown around in the engine sump, causing parts of the engine to be under-lubricated, and likewise parts of the engine to be over-lubricated, which can be equally hazardous. Inverted flight can be particularly dangerous to the health of the engine. The second disadvantage of the wet sump lubrication system is that the temperature of the oil is more difficult to control, because it's stored within the engine in the sump, which itself is hot. A third disadvantage of the wet sump oil system is that the oil becomes oxidized and blackened by the continual stirring action of the crankshaft and the connecting rods. Finally, the amount of oil available is limited by the sump capacity. The dry sump system overcomes all of these problems by storing the oil in a remotely mounted tank. The tank is made of sheet metal, suitably baffled internally to stop the oil surging around while the aircraft is manoeuvring. Whenever possible, the tank is placed above the level of the engine to ensure a gravity feed into the engine. The tank forms a reservoir of oil large enough for the engine's requirements, plus an airspace. The airspace is very important. It allows for several situations. For instance, the expansion of the oil when it gets hot, as it inevitably will. Also frothing, due to aeration of the oil as it flows around the engine, will occur, requiring a greater volume of space. Another situation that requires the airspace is caused every time the engine is shut down. The walls of the crankcase are saturated with oil that drains into the sump. The oil will remain there until the engine is restarted, when the scavenge pump, which is fitted at the bottom of the sump, will return it to the oil tank. Finally, if the engine has any oil-operated devices fitted to it, such as a variable pitch propeller, the displacement that these mechanisms cause has to go somewhere, and the tank serves as the receptacle for it. The pressure pump consists of two deep-toothed spur gears rotating in a close-fitting pump casing. It's fitted on the accessory casing and is driven from the crankshaft by gears. Oil pressure is sensed at the outlet of the pressure pump. Unless it's controlled, the oil pressure will vary depending on the speed of the pump, the temperature of the oil, and the resistance offered by the engine components. The capacity of the pump must be sufficient to supply a minimum oil pressure under its most adverse running conditions, that is, when the engine is running slowly and the oil inlet temperature is very high. Because of this, under normal running conditions the pressure available would be much greater, possibly great enough to damage the engine or its components. To maintain the oil pressure more or less constant during normal engine running conditions, and also to prevent excessive oil pressure in the system, a pressure relief valve is fitted between the inlet and the outlet of the pump. When the pressure reaches a predetermined figure, the valve opens and sufficient oil is returned to the inlet side of the pump to limit the maximum oil pressure. A coarse wire mesh suction filter is fitted between the tank and the pressure pump. It's designed to remove large solid particles from the oil before it enters the pressure pump, and thus it prevents damage to the pump. The pressure filter is fitted downstream of the pressure pump, before the oil enters the engine. It's designed to remove very small solid particles before the oil passes to the bearing surfaces, and thus it prevents damage to the engine. The scavenge pump returns the oil which has passed through the engine into the sump back to the oil tank. Essentially, it's the same design as the pressure pump, but larger. This is because to maintain a dry sump, the scavenge pump needs to be of a larger capacity than the pressure pump. As has already been mentioned, the oil is used as a cooling medium in the engine. If the oil gets too hot, then it will fail as a lubricant, and as a consequence the engine will also fail. To prevent the oil temperature rising too high, an oil cooler is introduced into the system. The oil cooler consists of a matrix block, which forces the oil into a thin film as it passes through it. The cooler matrix is subjected to a flow of cold slipstream air which has been directed through the cowlings. Engines of higher power can have shutters fitted to the oil cooler. These are used to control the flow of air through the cooler. They can be manual or automatic in operation. Prior to engine start, the engine oil will normally be cold and viscous. The cooler matrix is fairly delicately constructed, and can easily be damaged by high internal pressures. To prevent damage to the cooler matrix, an anti-surge valve is placed in parallel with it. This will allow cold, thick oil to bypass the cooler and go straight back to the tank.